Hi, I'm Donna Davis along with Richard Cole, the founder of Cole's Wild Bird Products. And we have some interesting things today for our live segment. How are you, Richard?
I'm fine today. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you here. And this is an exciting time with almost a spring. We've got a lot of things to talk about. We're going to talk about everything from how you compare seed so that when you go to buy bird seed, you're a little more educated consumer and you know exactly what you're getting, to some things you need to know going into spring. So let's start with, it's March and this is the big time for migration, right?
It is March and spring's right around the corner. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was out doing yard work because we had a large snow. It's very unusual for this part of the country. We had 10 inches of snow. Our plants in this area typically can't handle that very well. Not so much the cold, but the weight of the snow breaks a lot of limbs. So 2 weeks ago, I was out doing the yard work, which is a major chore because a lot of trees got broken, a lot of limbs are down. So I spent maybe half the day out in the yard. And while I was out there doing some work, I heard a familiar sound. It was in the distance, it was high up in the air, but it was a gaggle of sandhill cranes. I'm fortunate enough to be in a flyway, and as much of this area right here is, of the sandhill cranes as they move south and move back north. My first thought was, oh, the sandhill cranes are moving south. And I realized, oh no, they're moving back north. It's February, and they're headed back north again for their breeding territories. And it just reminds me, like, spring is almost here. And so you got to be prepared for the other birds that are here. A lot of the migrants that come back up from South and Central America, you won't notice those so much because they're not huge like sandhill cranes. They don't make a big noise that you can hear for a mile. They're small. They're mostly warblers and things that come in here. They don't hit your feeders a lot. So like I said, you just don't notice them that much, but they're coming through. Some of the seed eaters show back up. But you need to be ready for springtime. The suet that you can put out in feeders is great for the warblers. And it also reminds you that the seed eaters need it right now. Mentioned before, just when they need it the most time is now, because it looks pretty outside. Every other day we get beautiful sun, it's a little warm, and you say, oh, spring's here. But there's not much food available because most of it's died. All the insects that they were eating are pretty much gone. The dried seed, weed seeds that are out there naturally are pretty much gone. And it's time for them to set up their territories and breed. And there's very little food. So they can really use the food this time of year. And a side note to that, don't be discouraged if you see few birds at your feeder this time of year, because there's 2 times a year this happens. Fall, I call the fall slowdown, when there's abundant food out there that's natural. The spring, when the birds have little food, they're hungry, but they have to separate out, claim a territory so they can raise their young and feed. So they'll push all the other birds out of the area. So you'll see very few birds coming to your feeder. They have to build a nest, tend to their young, and forage. They don't have time, nor can they come into your territory where your feeder is because the other birds will chase them out. So you'll see a little drop, but be prepared as we get on the backside of the breeding time, especially down into May, late April, May, June, you'll see a lot more birds because all the babies will be out.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time of year.
And we really do need to help them, I know, this time of year. And we do want to remind you, we are here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And Richard Cole is here to answer your questions. He is a birding expert, has been doing this for a long time. And any question you can think of just about, Richard can answer it. So go ahead on Facebook and ask your questions. We're watching live, and you'll see me look over here from time to time. I'm just looking for your questions, your comments. You can even post pictures if you want to. But let's talk about the nesting boxes and what people need to do to get ready for the babies.
Yeah, like I said, all the birds don't use nesting boxes. A lot of people call them birdhouses. Nesting boxes is a much better term because they don't live in a house. They go in these cavities, nesting boxes, usually natural cavities in trees that woodpeckers carved out, to have a protected place to lay their eggs and bring their young up to flying time. So nesting boxes are an important part to help these birds where their natural cavities are gone, because we tend to cut down all the dead trees around us. So that eliminates a lot of their natural nesting areas. So put up bird houses, nesting boxes in your yard, and 2 or 3 is a good number to have. A lot of people will put up 1. you know how people are shopping for houses? They'll come and look at an entire subdivision and it's like, no, not this one. I don't like the corner. Maybe, no, I don't like that. There's the one right there. You need choices for these birds. They follow a pattern similar to that. They look around.
You can tell, yes. They
And-
will go and look at one and then look at another one. And they really, it does remind me of just like we do. We go and look at a house and then and it seems like one will go get the other one. And the other one will check out the houses.
In a lot of cases, the male will select a place and show it off to the female. Of course, she actually makes the final selection. That's pretty much the way we do it too, isn't it? Yeah. He's pretending like he knows what he's doing. So they'll pick out this one. You never really know. We can read the books about what they want, where they want the birdhouse, how high it should be, which direction it should face, what color. They don't read the books. They, in general, will follow what we recommend, but you never know. So put out several boxes. Put out 3 or 4. Sometimes something will come along and start to claim a box. Here comes your bluebirds. The box is being taken by somebody else. They'll move on. If you got another box, maybe they'll take it. Sometimes the ones that started this box won't even take it. They'll do what we call a fake nest or a starter nest, or something will happen to their mate. They don't finish it. If you have several nest boxes, you got a much, much better chance of getting birds nesting in your yard.
I do think bluebirds are, most people really, really want to attract bluebirds. And my husband and I were just so anxious to have bluebirds. But you really have to be patient. For one thing, it does take them a long time, it seems, to decide. Like the first year, we put out 2 nesting boxes, and we sat out there every day to try to see when the bluebirds would nest, and they didn't. And another bird came, and nested in one of the boxes. But now they do every year. So it's like it's a lot of effort and patience to get them. But then once you do, it's like they're very loyal to you.
Yeah, they are. And they'll come back, like you said, year after year. And in the case of the eastern bluebird, they will nest 2, 3, sometimes, or 4 times during the breeding season during the summer. So that's a lot of bluebirds you get to see raised and fledge out of the boxes.
It's so exciting to see them,
Yeah.
fledge and that sort of thing, and to be teaching, and then to bring the young ones to the feeders. You can tell them, you can see them teaching them to come to the feeders and everything. So it is exciting. Tell us some of the products that you need to put out to attract them as far as the food.
Well, the bluebirds are not traditionally, seed feeders, because they don't have bills that can really crack the seeds like a lot of the small birds. Chickadees and titmice have a very sharp pointed beak. They can poke holes in the seed. Cardinals, of course, have the big conical beaks that can crush seeds. They have no trouble eating hard-shelled seeds. But bluebirds are not built for that. They're built to eat berries and insects. However, if you feed a really good quality bird seed like Coles with a lot of sunflower meats in it, that's without the shell on it, they'll eat those just like little insects. They love it. The other thing, of course, is suet. Suet is rendered fat. In some cases, they'll use other ingredients like flour or cornmeal, and then put peanuts and things in it. So like we have 4 varieties of the
suet,
of
right?
the suet, just for the bird. 2 of them are very good in the summertime when it gets really hot, because they're made with dough, a lot more flour in it, so it doesn't melt as easy in the hot sun. And the other 2 have a lot more fat content, which are great this time of year. So you've got 4 products to choose from. All of them are great for the non-seed-eating birds. And of course, the seed-eating birds will help themselves also. But that's, if you have bluebirds and some of the warblers, put the suet out. Also, most of the Coles birdseed blends have sunflower meats without the shell. And like I said before, a lot of the birds who can't eat birdseed because they can't crack the shell will certainly eat the sunflower meats, and they love it. They'll look like they spend their entire day at the feeder with the sunflower meats in it. And 2 of the best things you can put out: a good blend with heavy sunflower seed meats in it, and suet. And also we have dried mealworms. Coles puts out some dried mealworms, not the little ones that crawl and are live, but they're dried, so they don't move, and they're easy to use. They're clean. Just put them in a little bowl, and the insect-eating birds, of course, will go to those readily, and you'll have a captive audience for those.
Absolutely. They love it. I think you can't go wrong with that combination.
Yeah.
Of the sunflower meats and the dried mealworms, and they're not like as gross as the live ones. But anyway, we want to invite you to share this this broadcast out with your family and friends who really care about feeding the birds as well. And we want to talk to Richard, want to get your insights about all bird seeds are not created equally. We want you to be more educated consumer about what to look for in your bird seed.
This is sort of like now a word from our sponsor. Yeah.
Well, you want people who are buying coals to appreciate the quality of it and what they're really getting and how and some of these other cheaper feed. You might think you're getting a good deal, but in reality, you're not.
And no, you're not in a lot of cases. And especially with people just getting started feeding the birds, there's nothing, you just don't know. You haven't been educated. When I first started feeding the birds, I did the same thing. I went to the local grocery store. I got a bag of bird seed. I took it home. I put it in the feeder, and it sat there.
Right.
And it sat there. And then some birds finally found it, and then they threw it out. Every day, the bird feeder would be half empty, but it'd all be laying on the patio.
Right, and that's not why you buy bird seed.
No. Then I learned what was going on, that's a lot of the stuff in there was just there because it was a seed. Nobody packaging knew the difference or nor cared. So the birds wouldn't eat it. They were shoveling it out, looking for the good stuff. That's what got me started into this business. I said, that didn't make any sense to me. What's the problem? And it was easy to fix. Just buy the seeds that the birds would like to eat.
And you did a lot of research to see what seeds they wanted, right?
Absolutely. There had been some relatively scientific tests done years before about birds' preferences for seed products. And I did my own, and it made sense what I put out. You'd see they eat this, don't eat this. Well, the stuff they don't eat, don't put it in the bag.
Right.
So it's been a long process of learning and adding products to the Kohl's line, but we did it not as a corporation to, let's make a lot of money or this will sell well. It was like, I want to feed my birds.
Yeah.
I want what's good for my birds, and I can't find it out there,
Yeah.
so I made my own. And it just kept going. Like I said, a couple of times, somebody saw it and they wanted some. I gave it to them. And as a joke, we started packaging it. And it turned out not to be much of a joke. It was a great business.
Absolutely.
It just kept growing because we were supplying bird seed that the birds really liked. And people could see the difference at their feeders, which is exactly why you're supposed to be putting the bird seed out, to attract the birds so you can enjoy them.
Right.
And this time of year, like I said, just when they need it most, is a great time to put out good bird seed.
Yeah.
And then you get into what's good bird seed.
Well, tell us. You brought a couple of bags here today. Let's talk about that.
I have. I went shopping today for some bird seed, and I went to a place that didn't carry Kohl's, so I could buy what they had.
Right.
And actually, I found there's two types of bird seed commercially out there. One of them is really what I call grocery store blend. You'll see it change colors during the year depending on what they can find is cheap to put in a bag. It's mostly little round seeds, millet and milo, very few sunflowers in there. And most of that's going to get thrown out because it's worthless for feeding birds other than pigeons or doves on the ground, or quail maybe, but that's not what you're looking for. But some of the bird seed out there looks really good. And I've got an example right here. Here's a bag I picked up today, and it's fairly expensive. And it looks pretty good. You look at this, it's got safflower, it's got some sunflower, a lot of sunflower seeds. There may be some sun meats in there. It's really hard to say. I think it's on the list of ingredients. But that's nice looking bird seed. I wouldn't leave this behind. I'd pick this up and say, yeah, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it has a sort of the first part of what it lists is what's in it. Sounds a little bit like what's in Kohl's good blends. Nice. However, there is a small problem. Well, I'd say a big problem. Let's lay this down. My daughter came up with a great thing. I say my daughter's in this business. She's running the business. It's a family business. It's unlike some of these other places. I don't know that you could find a family member. I don't think they have them. But our entire company is a family-owned business.
Right.
And so you call someplace you can talk to. Elaine Cole. You will call, give them a call. They will talk to you. But she came up with a thing, if you can't read it, don't feed it. And what that means is take a look at the ingredients list. Wow, it's something else. I'm not even going to attempt to read the ingredients on this bag. I don't want to look silly, so I'm going to let Donna read it.
Okay, so it starts off okay. Sunflower seed, safflower seed, peanuts, dried cherries, dried raisins, vitamin A supplement, vitamin D3 supplement, vitamin E supplement, and then minodione sodium bisulfate complex,
All right.
thiamine monoitrate, riboflavin, niacin, choline chloride. I mean, you get the idea.
I'm not feeling
the
well already.
bottom part, the last few ingredients are things that, you can't read it.
You can't read it. And there's
So
a
what does it mean?
lot of them. It means that they're trying to keep down insect problems in the seed, and they're trying to make it look better. In some cases, someone put a little bit of mineral oil in there to make the seeds look a little shinier and to hold the dust down. But there's a lot of preservatives, things to kill insects and preserve. Just like a lot of food products will have some of these ingredients and nothing this bad. But you'll see this in a lot of these bird seeds, that helps their product look good. It doesn't make it any better. I will take this opportunity to read the Kohl's list. I might be able to read it myself. Now here is the Kohl's blend that a lot of these
You can
try to
see
look
the
like.
peanuts are much larger too, and
Yeah.
that the sunflower seeds look really rich and they're large, and I know they're very high quality.
and they're fresh, and a lot of whole
You
peanut.
see a lot of sunflower meats
A
here.
lot of that gray is pure sunflower meats, not the one or two dry. It's a lot of, and that's what the birds are going for. It's the
Right.
sunflower meats and sunflower seed and the peanuts. I think I'll even attempt to read these ingredients. Black oil sunflower, sunflower meats, black striped sunflower, raw peanuts, safflower, pecans.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah.
Where's
Not
all
one
the other stuff?
preservative, no insect killers.
It's
nothing.
almost like you're not getting something.
Yeah.
You're not getting all that junk and all the chemicals. How do we do that? How do we get away with doing that? But these people have to put all those chemicals in there. It's not a secret. We package specially. This plastic looks a lot like this plastic.
It
but-
doesn't feel the same.
It's a slightly heavier,
Yes.
stiffer plastic. It's called barrier packaging. It has a barrier layer in it that prevents gas molecules from moving through the plastic. I use the example of a helium balloon. You have a helium balloon, like the rubber ones. You put it up 2 days later, it's empty and laying down. The helium gas inside the balloon moves right through that rubber. And it's hard to think that it can do that, but they're small little rascals, and the plastics have a lot of holes in it. They do, over time, move right through it. As they move out, other things from outside move in. So you have an exchange of gas in a regular bag, so things get stale. And there's oxygen in the bag all the time, so any insects that are in with the raw seeds can grow and thrive. They got a food supply and they've got oxygen. The barrier plastic does not allow the molecules of gases to move in and out. So whatever you put in there stays in there. Whatever's on the outside stays outside. As this is packaged, we take, as it goes to the machine, a blast of nitrogen goes in as the seed goes in, pushes the oxygen out. So the bag is then sealed, and it's filled with mostly nitrogen, an inert gas that's not really healthy if you're trying to live in it. So if any insects are in there, any seeds, insect eggs are in there, they won't hatch. If anything, a little bug is in someone's shell, it dies. And so but the best thing is, it really stays fresh the whole time.
Right.
Because the oxygen content is reduced to just a little bit. There's not enough oxygen in there to corrupt the seed. Oxygen is what makes a lot of foods go stale, because it's almost like oxygen and things cause rust. Well, it causes problems with products, food products. So the packaging is very special. The nitrogen purging is very special, and it keeps everything fresh
Yeah.
for probably years. We don't know. We've had some bag now 5 or 6 years that this still looks great.
Yeah.
We don't have insect in it. We've also found that if it's laying around and unopened, rodents won't mess with it because they can't smell the seed inside. they could smell it inside other bags. Just let you know that it moves through. But that's why ours stays fresh.
Yeah.
All of our seed products are packaged like that. So when you get it, it's going to be fresh. We buy it fresh too. When we go to the market and get these things and contract for the food come in, it's the freshest and the best that we can get as opposed to the cheapest we can get.
Right. I know you guys, and if a seed doesn't come in and look good, you'll send it back.
Absolutely, we'll send it back.
Yeah.
Big loads of it go back.
We have a couple of comments and questions. Let's get to these really quick. Ron Ballard says, I currently pour off my bags into metal storage bins. Would I be better off keeping it in the plastic, but somehow keep it airtight?
Well, if it depends on how much you go through, what time of year it is. I do the same thing. I have 2 trash cans. I painted them so it looks a little bit nicer than a regular trash can, but there they are. And I'll open my bags and pour it in there. If I'm going through 20 pounds a week, that's no problem, even 2 or 3 weeks. You just don't want birdseed unopened to be sitting around for a month. And it happens. Time flies quickly. You think, oh, it's only been out there a week. No, it's been out there a month. By that time, insects can get in it, especially in late summer. During the warmer months, it's not much of a problem in the wintertime if it's in your garage where it's cool, but you lose a little freshness, but you don't get the insect problem. So keep some of it open like that so it's handy to scoop out and go fill your feeder. But if you buy 2 20-pound bags of coals or something, keep one of them off to the side. Just let it sit there and put the other one in there for convenience. It's a little at a time.
And then we have Kathy DeSelitz. She just says fillers. And then Ron Ballard again says, I want to attract more goldfinches. What should I feed them?
Sunflower meats. Sunflower meats. This is something we've watched change over the years. When I got into this 30 years ago, the main thing was put out what they call thistle seed for goldfinches. They have a little special feeder that had little teeny little holes, and this thistle seed was very small. And as it turns out, it was never thistle seed. That's a wild plant that grows a lot in the United States, and it's thorns and people don't like it. It's a noxious weed. So you can't even buy thistle seed. But Niger seed is imported from Niger, Ethiopia, and several other places in that area who grow Niger seed. And it's similar to a sunflower, but it's teeny, very teeny little seed with a good oil content in it. And you put it out in these little feeders with a little bitty hole, and the goldfinches love it.
Yeah.
But we found over time that they like sunflower meats better. You'll see some period of time, if you have both of these feeders side by side with fresh Niger seed and sunflower meats, you'll see them taking a lot of the Niger seed, still some of the sun meats. But most of the year, the goldfinches are going to go straight for the sunflower meats. They can crack sunflower seeds also, but why bother when it's already cracked for them?
Yeah.
So you can put out sunflower meats and have no trouble attracting the goldfinches.
Yeah. Okay, so we have one other question. Let me see. I'm sorry. Kathy again says, I was talking about other seed fillers. Helps to weigh the bag content when you mentioned seed that looked good. Yeah, so that is a good point that she's making. We did have one other one. They wanted to know about whether the squirrels would eat the dry mealworms. Like, what should you do if you're putting out the dry mealworms? How do you keep the squirrels from eating that? Or is that anything that they really even especially like?
They don't seem to like it very much. I have seen a squirrel go for it. I have a small domed feeder, and it's about this big around, a little dome on it. I put suet kibbles and small suet products in there, maybe with some peanuts for the titmice, and I put mealworms in it also. I'll see the squirrel can jump up to it, and I don't mind. There's not a lot in there to waste, but it rarely eats the mealworms. It'll taste them, but evidently it doesn't mean a lot to them. So the birds go for it, but the squirrels don't.
Well, that's good. And her name is Colleen Malhoy. And we've got 7 shares, so we want to thank everybody who's taken the time to share out the broadcast. And we want to remind everyone that Richard Cole is here every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock to answer all your birding questions. So if any of you have additional questions, please, we've got about 5 more minutes left. get your questions in now. Just comment on Facebook under the broadcast, and I keep looking over here because that's where my computer is, where I can see them.
And I keep looking over here because this is where my notes are.
If you can't read it, don't feed
feed
it.
it.
That's what you have to remember for today. If you can't read it, don't feed it. And we should do the same probably with our own food.
Probably.
So anything else that you're thinking that you want to mention? I love the sandhill cranes and the sound of the sandhill cranes, that they make going over. And we can still watch for those, right?
I
All
think so.
through
There'll probably
March?
still be some moving through, and we rarely ever see them first. I always hear them first. I can be inside the house and hear them. They may be up at
Very
1,000 feet,
distinct.
maybe 1,500 feet
Yeah.
up or more. And back the other day when I was out doing the yard work, two of the groups came through. I never saw them because we had some clouds up there. They were completely in the clouds, low clouds, but they were in the clouds. I couldn't see them at all. I was estimating that maybe there's 20 or 30 in one of the groups and maybe 50 to 100 in the other.
Why do you think they do that? Like, to me, if people, it seems like birds, when they fly over, would not instinctively want to call so much attention to themselves because of hunters and that kind of thing. Why is it the sandhill cranes do? I mean, do you know what they're doing? Are they calling out to each other? Are they?
I have
Do
no
you
idea.
know? Okay.
I have no idea.
Well, good. At
But
least
they
you can tell
do
us
they
right
do
now.
tend to communicate, and when you see, especially sandhills and some of the ducks and the geese, you see them in a V formation,
Right.
and there's a reason for that. It's
Right.
aerodynamics. You hear the talking in the racing circuits about car 42 is drafting somebody. That means they're right behind another car, and the reason they do that is not just following too close, but as closer they can get behind another car, the less wind resistance they get moving, so they can save fuel, not expend the energy, because the car in front is braking the air for them.
And don't they
can move through it.
change out that place?
And they change
because
out,
it's
they
exhausting?
rotate. The guy in the front is carrying the load, and everybody behind it gets a little teeny break all the way
Yeah.
back to the back edge, and every now and then they swap around. Maybe that's what they're calling about all the time. Hey, I'm tired. You come up here and relieve me.
But they have the most beautiful, distinctive
They do.
call. I really
They do.
like it. My husband got some video of the sandhill cranes, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And then several other people were like, yeah, they're flying over our house now. And that's really fun on Facebook to be able to kind of keep up with each other and be able to ask each other about it. Anything else that you want to get to today? I'm going to freshen the screen and see if we have any additional questions.
Well, other than what I was saying earlier about it's time for the breeding season. It's time for these birds to come in. Make sure there's plenty of good food out there for them. It's going to be a little harder for them to get to right now to find it because it's scarce, and they need it the most right now. Clean out your bird houses, nesting boxes. Put up another nesting box or two. You'd be surprised how much more activity you're going to get if you have 3, 4, 5 boxes around your property.
Yeah.
And of course, put out some suet and make sure some sunflower meats and some dried mealworms are available for the non-seed eaters in your area.
And if you want to know anything, we've got tons of content on the Cole's Wild Bird Products webpage. That's coleswildbird.com. And so you can go there and you can access some of the videos that Richard's done. You may be able to answer your questions. We also have a YouTube channel that you can go to and ask your birding questions. And it was funny, I was looking last week at some of the more popular questions, and there's a real debate going on right now about the blue jays on YouTube. You haven't seen it, have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, people get so emotional about this. There was a guy saying how your answer was that, well, the blue jays aren't so bad, but that was one of the popular questions is how do you keep them away from your feeders?
Yeah, we hear a lot of complaints about the blue jays.
They're so
And,
beautiful.
you know, it's part of the package. You know, all these birds, you get into good birds and bad birds. We all kind of do that a little bit, but bad birds, no, there's no such thing.
And you kind of can't dislike an animal for just doing what it does.
Yeah.
Like the person was saying, they eat the seeds of other animals, other birds, and some, nest, not blue jays, but some birds will nest or take over somebody else's nest and or leave their abandoned. But it's just what they do. So
It's
how do you
what they
get
do.
mad at it? But it's a very emotional debate on your YouTube
It
channel.
is an emotional debate, but you have to keep in mind that this is nature. You get the opportunity to observe it up close because you're putting on some food and stuff. They come in. Go ahead and observe it. Don't interfere with it. Observe it. And when you see something like that going on that you don't like, the blue jay squawking too much, one of the birds laying its eggs in somebody else's nest, observe it. Just watch
Right.
what's going on and learn from it. Stand back, cool down, watch it.
And know that the Blue Jays do drive off like the Hawks, or they sound the alarm for all your other birds that you love so much,
Yes,
right?
they are called an alarm bird because they're one of the first ones to make a loud noise when they see a predator hawk coming in.
And crows do that too, right?
Crows do that also,
It
and they
seems like they'll
harass
chase
the
them.
hawks.
Yeah,
they
they'll
really
chase them
do.
out of the whole territory, right?
I've almost wondered why the hawks just don't turn around and eat the crow.
I have always wondered that. You'll
But
see,
they don't.
and they start to get really loud, and then more crows will come. And I actually do feel sorry for the hawks, even though I love my birds and I don't want the hawks to do anything. But yeah, I've always wondered, why don't they just turn around and off that crow?
We need to have one here for an interview
We'll
and
have to
ask them. Maybe next show.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Richard Cole is here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock here on our Facebook page. And please share out this interview. And thank you for joining us.